Swanson, and this is going to be probably the most valuable Q&A manager interview that I think I've ever done. All of these are very valuable, but let me just front load this. She's sitting here I said, hold on, don't say anything because these are crazy. And she just told me some stats. Crazy stats. This is a manager that's been with Domino's right at about 4 years. She works with Brian Edler's franchise. And she is the current, let me be very specific on this, current world record holder as far as ADT is concerned, average delivery time, at a crazy, can't even think about this, it blows my mind to even say it, 8 minutes, 8.73 minutes. This is Anya repping Brian Edler's franchise, and without any further ado, Anya, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you, Ryan?
I'm doing good. So I don't even know how you you broke out some time to spend with me today, because I can't even wrap my mind. Hopefully I can learn how a manager can run 8.73 minute ADT. And that was just recently, week ending 10/4, I think you said?
Yep.
10/4. So there's a lot of questions. They're actually still coming in right now. I told you, a lot of people want to know how you're doing this. And so I think it's always good. To kind of hear, if you could, kind of share what you did, kind of what were you doing like pre-Domino's, how you even ended up in Domino's, and kind of paraphrase like what got you into management, and then we'll kind of talk about like these crazy numbers and how this came to be.
All right. So back in 2016 is when I started with Domino's. I was actually in my final year of college in Tiffin University, finishing up a bachelor's in marketing and management. And I needed a part-time job to help pay some bills and finish up with schooling and everything. So I applied to Domino's because I saw an ad for them and became a delivery driver. So that was in May of 2016. And by July, I had started expressing some interest in making food and learning all that type of stuff. So by the end of July, I became an assistant manager. After finishing up school and everything, they actually decided to ask me to move to, at that point in time, it was the #1 store in the tri-state area in Findlay, Ohio. And from there, I became an assistant manager for John Brubeck, and then also a senior assistant underneath him. And then it was probably, it was about December of 2018 when I got offered my first store in Kenton, Ohio. From there, I have worked at Kenton, Port Clinton, came back to Findlay to open a new store, and now I'm here in Bryan, Ohio.
Wow. Okay. And this is all under the Brian Edler umbrella, I guess.
Yes, it is.
Okay, yep. Cool. So I always like to ask how people got started with Domino's, if anybody's seen any of these other Q&As, because you really never know. You really never know if you're going to get a star. And you know, you're really modest. I had to like beg Brian. I was like, I want to, this is critical knowledge that managers I know want to hear. And Brian speaks the world of you. I think a lot of Brian as a very successful franchisee. And but you started as a college student. I'm just kind of reiterating what you just said. And not to miss this, but you saw an ad that this particular store was hiring, you said?
Yes.
Was
it was on Indeed, because I was actually working for a recruiting firm as an internship. So I'm always on Indeed, and I always saw the ad popping up for my area. So that's how I ended up seeing it.
Okay, cool. So for those folks out there not using Indeed, you might have a star like Anya there. Make sure. Oh, real quick, how fast after you applied did somebody contact you?
About 30 minutes.
30 minutes. Okay, so let me be clear. If you get an application and you don't. If you wait, 30 minutes, that's like crazy fast. Some people it's like a day, like 48 hours. So, and you might have applied at a couple different places, maybe, I don't know. But 30 minutes. So that's just really important. Because a lot of people are like, I need some people, and this is critical. So knowing that, all right. So what we're not going to do for confidentiality purposes, and there's a lot of questions. People are like, "What?" I'm looking at my list here. What's your A list? What's your sales? We're not going to share that. That's just not. That's just something you shouldn't do. But we'll get a whole bunch of other stats that will help at least drive this point home. As far as the A list is concerned, without giving any numbers, would you say you're like probably at the national average or in that range or above or somewhere close to that? People kind of have an idea what that is.
Yeah, about the average.
Okay. Okay, cool. So if you don't know what the national average is and you're watching this, ask like your marketing leader or franchisee, they'll tell you. But we're not going to give you numbers here. Okay. So you're in a store, you're managing. How long, because we talked a little bit before this, how long were you a GM before DSS started?
I was only a GM for about a year and a half.
Year and a half.
Came
Okay.
in November of 2000 and about 2019, I would say it was.
Okay. And just to put things, because I don't even, for some reason, I hear franchisees, not every store has DSS, which is mind-boggling, and I'm sure it would be very mind-boggling to you. And maybe this video would change their view of this. But what would you say, if you remember, what was your ADT for the most part pre-DSS?
I had one store that was running about 19.7 to the door. That store was a very small and condensed delivery area. So obviously it made it very easy to run those times. I also ran a store. It was somewhere probably around 21. So a lot larger delivery area and a busier store.
Okay. Okay. So, probably in the 20-minute range, it sounds like on a typical average delivery area. And so DSS came to be, and when it went live in the store you were managing, like what happened? How did you address it? I mean, how did you communicate with your team? What happened?
So I love, I'm not a huge tech guru, but I love things that make my job easier. So it was a lot easier to get on board. So the first level of DSS only showed like the skins and stuff like that coming through.
Okay.
So I always stress to my employees, let's make sure we have all that stuff up. That way it makes it faster going into the oven. And at that point in time, they all bought in and they were ready to, look at that next step, because we knew in our heads that eventually another level was coming. So we wanted to be an expert at that level. That way we can move into this next level a lot easier.
Okay. And so part of, you mentioned your team. And so how important do you think it is to communicate kind of these changes that are happening, and because not everybody likes change. I mean, we're talking about the new I just drew a blank. It's not Samurai. What's it called now? Then it's not called Samurai. It's the
flat boxing system.
The flat boxing system. I just drew a blank. There's a name for it, but but there's a lot of people that are looking at that and saying, "Oh man, that's a change." That's like a big change. But so, like, how did you? Because you must be a very effective and communicator. So how did you get your team to buy into, what's happening and how you're going to change how you're going to run your store?
So my leadership, like how I lead, is I always lead by action. If I'm doing it and, I talk about it, they're going to start doing it. I don't just say everyone has to do it. I show them personally that this is how we're going to do it. This is how it's going to make us even better. So I lead them in a visual point instead of just words. So I think that's what really helps out everything and makes it easier for my team to be on board.
Okay, cool. And so when one of the questions, because I get a lot of questions from some Domino's managers, probably some franchisees too, is like your schedule. And so when you're not to go into like step by step, but like when you're making your schedule, because a lot of people I guess have a challenge, because their sales are seasonal, sales fluctuate, like last week was a national app boost week. Like when you're making your schedule, first, how long does it take you? And then, and what reports and what are you doing to really make an effective schedule to run these numbers?
So I like to ideally start my schedule Monday afternoon, Tuesday, depending on what day I'm off that week. And then I make a rough schedule. So I'll put everything in thinking that's what I need for that week. And then I'll let it sit for a day or two. And then once I see kind of like where this week is heading, I'll go back in and I'll make some tweaks. And then also you always want to take into consideration weather. Everyone knows when it rains, it pours at Domino's.
Yeah.
So knowing the weather ahead of time helps you, like maybe if you're looking for hours for someone, if someone needs some extra hours, knowing that it's supposed to rain this day, you might add them in for a few more hours. And then also just understanding where your store was at last year and where you're at this year. So right now I'm in a brand new store. So obviously I have no past to look at. So it's kind of like flying by the seat of my pants right now. But I take the weeks prior and understand like what we did there, where we were at our weakest and where we were at our strongest, and maybe had too many people, and then fix it to what the next week needs to look like.
Do you like, how do you do like schedule requests?
So we have a request off sheet. So I tried to honor, in my opinion, every request off. Obviously, some people can't do that. But if I build that relationship that they can ask for a day off and they know that they'll get it, then they will work hard for me when they're here, knowing that they can have those days off and, work with that. So I'm a very flexible person. And I tell them that in their interview. I'm very flexible. Don't be afraid to come to me for a schedule change. I will make it work one way or another. I would rather you here than calling off and eventually quitting because I'm not meeting your needs also. Because every employee has needs. They're not just all Domino's focused like someone like me is.
Okay. And do you have, I mean, I don't know your staffing situation now, but I mean, are you, like as far as like overtime, because a lot of people are saying, well, what kind of labor she's running? She must be blowing her labor. Again, these are people that can't wrap their mind around it, and I get that. It's really hard to wrap your mind around sub 10-minute ADT. Like, what kind of labor percentages are you running right now?
Right off the top of my head, we are running about. Actually, I was looking at my week to date right now. So on my schedule, there's only one person that's scheduled 1.25 hours over in overtime.
Wow.
So I have enough people that we don't carry overtime over.
Wow.
So roughly we run about 19 to 20% labor.
Okay. That's pretty dang awesome. At least I know where we are, and that's on the low end. So that's fantastic. So as a lot of people know, ticket helps. Obviously, efficiencies help. And so what's like your average ticket these days, as far as, because that will definitely impact your labor.
So our average ticket price is in the high 23s, low 24s most weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay. And is your, again, I'm just kind of reading off a lot of these questions. And so what's your, and I know I'm putting you on the spot on some of these things, but like your average, your OLO percentage.
Mm-hmm. So when we first opened this store, it was a high call-in store. And over time, people have understood that if they order online, they're technically going to get their food faster because they don't have to sit on the phone in case like there's 10 different phones ringing. They don't have to wait for someone to answer the phone. They can log on, they can order what they want, they know what they want, and get it done faster. So I would say over time, our phones ring less. I'm trying to see if I can find the numbers here real quick. So our online sales right now is at 72.5% for the last period.
Okay. And so, 72%, and you got a ticket that's in the $23 range, that's people, it's not like you're, I mean, your team's only taking just shy of 30% of the orders. And so that's a lot of people just selling themselves. Are you, like, price-wise, are you very competitive with most of if you have any national competitors with that kind of service? Are you pretty competitive on like delivery charge, minimum for delivery, and all those things?
Yes, we actually just took up our delivery charge a few months ago, especially with prices going up food-wise for us. We needed to find a little bit more of a buffer. So we actually took our delivery charge up about 50 cents, I want to say, a few months ago.
Okay. What kind of delivery to carry out percentage split do you have?
So like I said before, like this store was a huge carry out area, but since then I want to say we're down to about 65% carry out, the rest delivery right now. So that number, the carry out number, keeps decreasing. and then the deliveries keep increasing over time.
Okay. And are you doing any marketing to like educate your carryout customers when they come in, or are you doing any kind of marketing promoting your speed of service yet?
Not the speed of service yet. We've always done the golden mile, especially when we set a goal to break a record. We always hit our golden mile. We send out mailers, we door hang, we do a whole bunch of extra marketing and some great coupon responses to help push them to wanting to order delivery. And over time, we've started seeing deliveries skyrocket.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm a lot of stuff, and I know you're using LSM University, and a lot of stuff you've probably seen in the content in there has to do with kind of getting. I always like to use this term, getting credit from non-customers or even carryout customers from for all the stuff you're doing good, and as you're starting to see people are trying you and they're like, oh, well, it's I can get it delivered faster than I can to drive and pick it up. And so for those customers that aren't hell bent on saving $1 to get the $7.99 pickup or whatever, they're like, it's worth it. It's worth getting a pizza delivered in 10 minutes,
Right.
even though they're paying a delivery charge or maybe, a higher ticket. A question that came up, and because again, there's people that can't wrap their mind around this, and so if I'm asking these questions, don't take it the wrong way. It's just they can't wrap their mind around it. I can't even for a little bit. I'm just like, this is just almost foreign to me, but that's good because that's how you learn. A question come up, and I had to ask, I had to figure this out, and maybe you can enlighten me. But there's a report. I think OER coaches check this. It has to do with timed orders or new timed order percents. And I guess that's what people manipulate and use the timed order feature. Do you have any sense of, where your stats are with that? Or have you had any, because being a good communicator, have you had any issues with manipulation and how have you addressed that so you can be legit?
So yes, there is a report. I want to say it's on Power under Tiger Reports. It's somewhere in there where you can figure it out. But yes, we have ran into that, not in my store, thankfully. I do not condone cheating whatsoever. But it has been brought to my attention that, there's other stores out there that will change delivery orders that come in either via the internet or on the phone to timed orders because say their driver's gone on a delivery and they want to compete, quote unquote, compete in delivery times. So they'll put it in as a timed order instead of a legit order, even though the person did not ask for a timed order.
Okay.
So there is a report for that, yes. But just to summarize, so in one whole week, we had 12 timed order deliveries for that week that we set the record. So that in and of itself tells me that there was no orders put in the timed order. We had
That's good. I'm glad you disclosed that because people would be commenting, well, give us some numbers. Again, the whole purpose of this is to kind of help with the belief factor, because, and again, this is not a ding at you, but if somebody else is seeing success and they're in this business with us, that just means it's possible. I have one of my webinars talks about the aha moment, and the Roger Bannister was the first guy back in the 60s to ever run the 4-minute mile, and before then it was it's impossible, and then he did it, and then what happened after that? Literally within, I think it was less than 60 days after that, somebody broke it just because they saw somebody else do it. So that's my hope, is that people see this and they're like, if Anya could do this, no disrespect to her, but if Anya could do this, a fellow coworker in the biz, then I can do it. With regards to routing, I get a lot of questions of who's in charge of routing. This is kind of a combo question, but who does your routing, and what's your single percentage?
Okay, so routing, especially during push weeks like this, I am the one routing because first of all,
if you're not there, it'd be you or somebody in management.
Yes, correct. Yep, because we still have the feature on our dispatch where if it's too early to dispatch, you have to override it.
So you didn't take that off?
No, we have not taken that off. So that's just another line of security. That way drivers can't just go, oh, bing, 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 out, and the order's not ready. Okay. So it's still another line of security for us to help prevent any cheating. Okay. So a manager typically routes. So when we have a delivery in the oven, we have screens everywhere that shows when deliveries are supposed to be up and everything. A manager will go over there, make sure the driver has everything they need before the order's even out, and then they'll dispatch it once that last item hits the cut table.
Okay. Okay, cool. And are these numbers that you're running, this is on the regular, unless you correct me, this is on the regular setup. This isn't on the flat boxing new technique?
Correct. We have not switched over to that quite yet. We are working on that here in the next month or two.
Okay. I mean, from what I'm hearing, I'm sure hearing the same thing. I mean, it sounds like you're going to be even faster. So that's pretty awesome. So you said you pretty much have like a typical average delivery time. Can you share, like, what's your average run time? I think that's a good metric that lets people know.
Average run time? So anywhere between 12 and 14 minutes.
Okay. Okay, cool.
During that week, we ran 12.02. So.
Wow. Okay. Another metric a lot of people are asking about is it's in Power. I think it's like the deliver efficiency, where it shows like their efficiency time from the time they're routed to the time their car's moving, from the time they get back to their car. And I think I was talking to Edler, and it was like he had some like formulation. It was like, well, if it can go out in one, if they come in one, if load times are one, and it was like 10 minutes is your ADT. Do you have any idea of like what your numbers are, and do you sort of have like, are all those things pretty much related?
Yes, I would agree with that. So the way my store is set up is actually an old bank. So we actually have a 3-lane drive-through, and we have a driver door right where those lanes come in. So we have one for our pickup window, and we have 2 for drivers. So a driver can literally dispatch and get to their car in 15 steps and be gone. And the way our store is set up also is we have 5 different entrances and exits. So they can get in and out any direction. So they don't have to go around the block or backtrack. They can go straight towards the road they need to get to.
Oh, okay. Because it's funny you say that, because we have a store we're building, and that was a talk. We have a double drive-through, and we're like, let's chop the other one off because we're not going to use it. And I was like, well, maybe we can cut a door in right there, and they can run out. And the concern was, this is why I'm asking, is if you have people coming through the drive-through, how do your drivers kind of maneuver, because they're going to be walking, I'm assuming, in front or behind those cars? Is that like a safety issue, or?
We have not had any issues with it. Our drive-through is like a turnstile. It's literally nonstop, especially during dinner. And we have not had any instances where drivers did not feel safe or anything like that. They could get in and out very easily, and customers were not bothered at all.
Okay. Yeah, because Taylor, I think it was Taylor in our company, Taylor Patterson, said that he saw Chick-fil-A that had that full door right there at the drive-through, because, as you know, most Chick-fil-A people have, like, they're walking out there with them. And that's where we got the idea. So the building hasn't been built yet, so maybe we'll add that back in. Can you share it again? There's a lot of questions, but I think it's best maybe you just tell us, like, so you got DSS, you communicated to your team. And so what would you say are some like critical best practices that you say, like, you just have to be doing these things if you expect to be running ADT at this low?
So the biggest thing starts at the interview, literally at the interview, expressing to your potential employees that we are here to have fun, first of all, but we're also here to give the best service possible. And I always explain to them, like, here in this store, we set national records for delivery times. We focus on delivery times. We want to make sure our customers are happy. And so it always starts there. And then once they're signed on and ready to go and working for us, we, show them how we do everything. I had drivers start in the middle of a national record push week, and they don't know the difference between quote unquote normal delivery times or one where we're always hustling. So it's always that. And the second biggest thing is your store setup. Having everything where it's the most convenient, having those sandwich mats ready by the screens, ready by the papers, having those twists and parm bites ready to where even drivers can throw parm bites and twists in the oven while they're waiting for something. The store setup is the biggest key, along with always letting your employees know where you're at, what we're looking for, and what the goal is for the day.
Okay. And so that's, I don't want to, you said it really fast and I, because I'm putting you on the spot, but I caught that you said about, prep. And so, like, what's your store hours? You open at 10, 10:30?
We're 10:30 to midnight and then till 1 on Fridays and Saturdays.
Okay. So do you, like, what time does does your opening, quote unquote, people that come in and prep, what time do they typically come in to open?
Managers are in at 9:30, drivers are in at 10. So an
So,
hour before for managers, a half hour before for drivers.
okay. So do you guys do a lot of prep the night before?
Nope, all done's in the morning.
Wow. Okay. Okay. It's just cool to hear that, because I was always under the impression that, well, if we open at 10, you got to get there at 8, and then you get all your prep done, and then you're ready for a big lunch. But like, I can't wrap my mind around this, it's interesting. So when you, so if you're opening, do you typically, how many people do you typically have? Again, we're not talking sales here, but like how many people typically open? I know you mentioned driver and management, but do you have like multiple drivers? You have multiple management? I mean,
so Monday through Wednesday, we have one manager, one driver. On Thursday, we'll have one manager, two drivers. One driver's just there for lunch, and that's it. And then on Fridays, Fridays, I have a manager that comes in and opens, a driver in at open, a driver in at 11, and then I tend to work like 12 to 8, so I'm here for lunch and dinner. And then same with Saturday, and then same with Sunday. So my Friday, Saturday, Sundays is one manager opens, one driver opens. I come in at noon. The second driver comes in at 11 to 2.
So I think I just heard you right. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, your schedule is noon to 8?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. And how many hours a week do you, and I know, I mean, you've shared some like crazy hours that you've worked on some of these big ADT push weeks, but what's like a typical week for you as far as number of hours you work?
Typical, I like to stay between 50 and 55, but push weeks are completely different.
So for those that are like trying to challenge you, again, not to give you any more competition, but like how many hours honestly, how many hours are you in your store on push weeks, ADT push weeks?
100 hours.
100 hours. Okay. And you look to be in good health. You're not like you're, some people think you're dying. And those weeks don't happen all that often. But I think that's really encouraging, because a lot of people have this perception that you got to be in your store 60, 70, 80, on the regular.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I believe, and I don't want anybody to miss that, that's a really testament to you and your communication, your training ability, because, those hours, that the store is open, which is typical for most stores, 50 to 55 is a sweet spot. I think it's a sweet spot for your personal sanity. It's a sweet spot for your health and wellness, whatever you want to do outside of work. And then I don't want anybody to miss that you're working Friday, Saturday, Sunday when the key business is. And so from noon, just like you said, I'm just reiterating because I don't want anybody to miss this, noon to 8, that's an 8-hour shift. It's not a 12, 15-hour shift. Noon to 8, I'm assuming 8 o'clock. Is that because you're more of a typical residential store and after 8, it kind of slows down?
For the most part, yes. It's about the time we start slowing down. So we have about an hour and a half break before we start picking up again. So it just allows me to go over what we did on those days and, talk to my closing team, let them know what we need to have done that night and help with a little bit of the cleanup for dinner and then make sure I get out of there.
Okay. I mean, that's huge. Some people have stores that are busy for lunch and they have busy late night and they just pick one. And that's really important for people not to miss, is that, you're there. Like we always say, you want to be there when there's business. You want to be there when there's customers. You're not just getting hours.
Right.
And so being noon to 8, that's really important. And it's time that you're there. Again, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but my perception of that is, that's time where you're like one-on-one with one of your key management people during lunch. Mm-hmm. And you have time together with whoever's probably closing, because there's a long overlap. It's not tag, you're it, which can happen. Any other, again, this is an opportunity to brag in a good way, because people need to wrap their mind around this. What are some key stats that you think are important for what stats do you grade yourself on, where you're like, this was a successful night? You just mentioned at 8 o'clock or so, when you finish your shift, you're kind of, doing a sort of a recap of the day. I'm assuming you're doing that and you're sharing those numbers with your team. So what are some stats that are important to you that you're watching and your team's aware of?
I like to go in, I always look at the hourly reports. I like to see how many deliveries, especially when we're focusing on deliveries, going in and see how many deliveries we had at that time and what we ran for delivery times. One really sticks out in my mind. We had 19 deliveries in 1 hour. I want to say we had 5 drivers maybe, and we ran 10.2-minute deliveries for that hour. Just being able to see how much hard work that I put in beforehand and what I expressed to my managers paying off. Like, that just shows me that no one's standing around waiting. Everyone's working towards a common goal. So I like to look at that. I like to see where we're at for the day, and where we can, like, set kind of like a goal where we can be at by the end of the night. Say we got up to like 15-minute deliveries after dinner. Like, hey, let's try to get down to like 14 for the night. 14 will be great. And like, yes, 14 is fantastic and everything. And that's something we're shooting for, to run that every week, week in, week out, without having, quote unquote, extra labor or me working over 60 hours. So if I can have managers that have the ability to run 14-minute delivery times, it's outstanding.
Do you do any kind of like incentives for your team members, or do any kind of rankings, like tracking and all those things as far as your team is concerned?
I haven't done any rankings, but I do, like, especially on push weeks, I do set a goal and like with prizes at the end. So when we did the 8.94-minute delivery times, everyone got a hoodie, like a Domino's hoodie.
Okay.
So that way they can have that for the winter time. And, we did bonuses when we broke the record. And this next round, we find like t-shirts, hats, hoodies, something like that. So always encouraging giving team members a goal to reach for their own personal benefit. So I ask them what they want and I get what they want.
Okay. I like that. How, and again, every franchisee is a little bit different. They run their stores a little bit different, and Brian's not here to speak on his behalf. And I know Brian a little bit, and I know you got nothing but good stuff to say about him, but how does the franchise, in from your perspective, how important it is to, well, let me ask you this. I guess it's a better way to ask, like, when you said, I want to go, I'm assuming it was your idea to go for the world record and hit this goal. Did you have to sell, like, how important was it to get Brian, your franchisee, to be supportive? And was there certain things that you needed his help for, or did he just say, I'm not going to be in your way, do what you need to do, and he was just there to kind of high five you when he finished?
So what all brought this about is the first time I ran some pretty solid numbers was last December, the 50% off week. We actually set a quote unquote record for best delivery times by franchisee for a push week. So we ran 13.4-minute deliveries that week. Wow. So it got my gears turning. Like, what could we do? Could we break the national record that was in current at that point in time? So I had texted Brian, like, Brian, I'm thinking about this. I want to do this, but I need to know what it is. And so I asked him, like, what's the national record right now? And he says, I believe it's 11.7, but let me get it figured out. So that was on a Saturday morning. And I'm like, we're going to go for this on Monday. We're just going to go for it. And he texted me back, I want to say it was late Sunday, and he's like, it's 11.2. And at that point in time, I'm like, 11.2, that's just made hard. Like 11.7, like, I think we can do it. 11.2, I'm like, we're really going to have to push. And Monday we finished at like 8.64. And I'm like, this could be possible. So that's when we started putting out more mailers. And at that point in time, we were in a strip mall. So we had a lot of businesses around us. So we mailed out about 300, like we door stopped 300 businesses that week with 50% off pizzas, 40% off sides, order online only, delivery only. And at that point in time, that's what made the difference. So Brian has been very good to me. He has allowed me to do things that probably other managers wouldn't even think about doing. So he has given me the tools and the means that I need in order to succeed. So he's always been really good at, like, I'll ask him and he'll give. So he's been really good at giving me what I need to succeed.
That's awesome. And that's, I figured that's what you'd say just talking to him. He's just that kind of guy. And I think it's important. So if there are managers watching this and they feel like they need more support, and it sounds like you went to him. Like, this isn't something Brian came to you and said, you need to get the national record. You went to him. Again, I'm just kind of summarizing, correct me if I'm wrong. And you kind of, quote unquote, sold him on what you wanted to do. And then he was just there for support. And I think in any owner, quote unquote, manager, franchisee manager relationship, a lot of times you have to sell your franchisee on what you want to do. And I remember back in the day when we did some big sales push weeks, they were like, I'm not going to get your way, but okay, good luck. And then you can kind of make a name for yourself. And now obviously you have. So that's pretty awesome to hear. Two things. Well, first, if you could reiterate, you mentioned you went out and you put like 300 flyers out. It sounds like you were doing some form of door hanging around. It sounds like you have businesses or something very close to your store. And so can you just elaborate on that a little bit? And because I know what you did, you wanted to get a disproportionate amount of orders really close to help your ADT.
Right.
Can you just kind of elaborate on that a little bit so somebody's watching, they can say, oh, I can do that?
Yeah. So the purpose of doing those quick deliveries will help counterbalance the far ones. So obviously everyone has those deliveries that are like 15 minutes away, the outrageous outliers. So in order to help counterbalance those, we knew we could run really, really good delivery times without the short distance ones. But in order to beat a record, you need to have some on the lower end. So we went through and we door hanged every business at that point in time. So that gave us an extra 30 to 40 close deliveries, which helped with those outliers. So the first week that I did this was back in my Finley 2 store. So that's where we were in a strip mall and had the ability to go to all these businesses a lot easier. So we had all the printouts, and I want to say we had somewhere between 50 to 60 close deliveries at that point in time there. Best Buy was our best friends. They were literally 2 doors down, and they ordered probably about 16 times that week, multiple times a day, because they loved it. They loved that they could get their food in less than 10 minutes, and it was hot, fresh, and happy. Here in my Bryan, Ohio store, there's not as many businesses, so we did more of a 1 mile, golden mile of mail outs, EDDMs to homes and apartments and stuff like that, to help us allow to get those closer deliveries also.
Okay. And did you do, I know on the push week, or it sounded like you were, well, maybe, were you just promoting a 50% off, just pizza deal?
Which week were you talking about there?
Well, when you, I guess on a non-national sales boost week, like just recently when you did the one that finished on 10/4 here,
yeah,
a couple weeks ago, is that the week you're talking about that you mailed the Golden Mile?
Yep. So we mailed out 50% regular price menu pizzas for delivery only, online only.
Online only.
Yep. So we had a few other deals like on the back of it, but the main front was the 50% off on pizzas for delivery. And on the back, we had some other great couldn't miss out coupons.
And did you see, was your coupon response good enough that it definitely helped you?
Yeah. Yep. So we had some mapping issues with a few deliveries, which made them farther than what need be. So having those close deliveries is what helps save us from losing that extra tick on those far deliveries.
Okay. Well, 2 more questions, and then I know, because you got to go and you run your store today. One, can you just kind of give us an idea of how many team members you have in each position, like CSRs, drivers, management, just so people can kind of grasp your team?
So I have 3 assistant managers underneath me. All are very new, brought up through starting at drivers or in a management position. I have 1 insider, and then I have about 8 to 9 drivers right now.
And you're doing sales in the national average.
Yes.
Okay, so if there's anybody watching this that doesn't think it can happen, Anya just said it could happen, and you're working 50 to 55 hours a week. You're running sub 20 labor, and you're running these I mean, when I say ridiculous, that's a comment. There's ridiculously low ADT. I mean, it's just really inspiring. It's really inspiring. I'm going to make sure a lot of folks and as many folks in our company sees this video, because it's hearing it, you know, a supervisor can be talking to the manager, be like, yeah, well, the national manager of the year is doing this, this, and this. But hearing it straight from you is so inspiring. I can't say thank you enough for your time. Real quick, you mentioned some marketing stuff. Not to put you on the spot, but just to see what kind of input you might have. I know you've been using LSM University, the training course I put together, and I know there's a ton of content, a ton of content. Is there anything that you've used or gone through in that you think is of value that maybe you put into action that you said, okay, this is what I liked and this helped me out?
I would say definitely the golden mile part, like knowing like that golden mile. Obviously, it helps me in delivery times. Being able to know that going out and door hanging, yes, you might not see the recipient of it right away, but always going out and doing that, sending out EDVMs, always being persistent. Eventually, someone's going to give up and try you. They're going to see your ads so many different times that maybe we'll give it a try and stuff like that. So always being persistent in marketing and stuff like that. Obviously, I have a bachelor's in marketing too. So having that having that marketing mindset and knowing like what it takes to help build a rapport with people, knowing. So one thing Brian always, between Brian and Casey, my direct boss, always, it takes 3 times. One time is just a whoopsie daisies. 2, it starts to be like, maybe it's possible. That 3rd time is when you really start selling people on stuff. So being able to do things 3 times in a row is when you start getting that maybe they're actually doing this type thing.
Would you be up for, because you see customers all the time, and if there was an opportunity for you, I know it's in LSM University, and I've talked to Brian about it. Maybe he's already talked to you about it, but do you have any qualms about or any issues of being the face of your store on marketing material?
I don't know.
Okay, cool. Because just a side note for anybody that's watching, I was telling Brian the other day, we got to talking about some stuff, and we always, shoot off best practices, and that's why I love talking to him about really taking this success that you've had and using it and getting creative. And Brian will probably get with you on it, but literally, this is sort of a ninja technique that's really worked good for us that I call it is literally doing a selfie video in your store, and literally it's harder to get across because you're wearing a mask. But so typically when I've done this, I'm like outside, I'm like, I got to put this mask on and go inside so people understand. But walk in and literally do a video showing how fast your products leave in the store. Like literally walking over and say, hey, look at this. And you take the selfie video and you show it on your screen and you point at the out the door time. Maybe you have the driver say, hey, how old is that order? And they're like, the single digit numbers. And then we can run that as an ad, either via social media or whoever you use your print program with, and promote to your non-customers and your carryout customers how fast you are. And we're seeing crazy success. And it might put some, you might have to get some more people. Let's just put it that way in your store, because
never against that.
Yeah, I think it'd be really good. And like what we're doing in our company is literally picking and choosing our stores. They're not at 10 minutes, but they're at 20 or less. And then you can get credit from your non-customers by running these very simple, but it's so powerful when you become the face of your store. Yes, we're this global national Domino's brand, but when you're like, hey, this is Anya, I'm your Domino's manager at this store. Let me show you how we're able to do this. And then you have a Papa John's customer see that on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, or even in their mailbox. and they're like, hold on a sec. I just waited 45 minutes to get my pizza from Papa John's, and Anya can get it to my house in 10 minutes. You know, you'll see people that out of sheer disbelief will order from you, and then you got them, and it's pretty awesome. So, well, I appreciate your time. This is crazy, crazy awesome. You've made me a believer, and I can't wait for folks to see this. And I'm sure whenever we get together, the next World Ride Rally, if any of this has helped you and you've improved your ADT, you got to go up and maybe give, after all this is done, you might just have people come up and you giving you random hugs like, I got to give you a hug. My ADT's better because of you. So, but, well, thanks again. Good luck this week. And now, just for funsies, so people know when they're looking at the ADT challenge, what's your store number?
My store number is 2411.
2411. So when you're looking at the national stats, this is your manager. This is Anya that's knocking it out of the park. And so if you want to give her a challenge, if all of a sudden all these numbers start getting closer, you know, Brian's going to be like, why did you do this interview? Now it's going to be
I'll take it. I love a good competition. I had a store in Texas last round. Give me a good competition. So bring it on. Makes me a better person too.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks again for your time. Good luck, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks.